program.
Facebook all the time.
First thing I want to do is thank everybody for coming. This is the June meeting of the Tell City Historical Society. And we have these programs 10 months of the year. And the programs are for naught if nobody shows up. And we have a nice crowd tonight. And tonight's program is on these Tell City residences, old ones. And these pictures came from Mike and Kathy Finley's collection. Many of them are in books Kathy has written, which are just excellent Tell City history. And she also has a lot of them at her shop down there. We also captured a couple of them from the Tell City lithograph. But we have 126 photos. So we're going to blow through it pretty quick. But this is an interactive discussion. So if you have something to offer, tell us. Because Kathy will pick up on it, so will I, so will Chris Cale, and other people who are involved in the Historical Society. We have a lot of photos here we really just don't know a whole lot about. And we're trying to capture it. I remember going to the old meetings 45 years ago when I was a young guy, and the old guys like Don Keckerson, Charlie Schreiber, Edgar Shortens, those guys. You wouldn't believe the information those people had. That was before they got the whiskey box out, so that's pretty interesting. Before we get started, we want to say that the DSA, Distinguished Service Award nominations are due before July the 1st. Please get those in. We're going to do, the Historical Society is going to do the Table of Blessings at the UCC on September 1st. We have a picnic July the 25th at the Moose. It's inside at 6 p.m. and the public is invited. Also on July the 10th at the Historical Society Museum at 9th and Franklin, Steve Salmon is going. Steve, where's Steve?
Right here.
Steve is an eminent Perry County historian. If you want to know interesting items about Perry County, look at his Facebook site. It's just loaded with stuff. And he's going to give a history of the Ohio River at Rome at 2:30, and it is going to be wonderful. That is July the 10th. That is a week from this coming Sunday. And it would be very, very worth your time to be there. Okay. Going on to the program now. Like I say, this is an interactive discussion, and if you have something to offer, don't be shy. You know, just raise your hand or just say something, because we're looking for information. The homes that are shown here, Tell City at one time had just absolutely gorgeous homes. A lot of them right around where we are right here. But between the floods of like 1883, 1907, 1913, especially 1937. A lot of them were just damaged beyond repair. Not only from the water and the mud, but I've always been told that the majority of the damage in the 37 flood was from the lumber, from these lumber stacks of all these factories. They broke loose and the waves just knocked them in the side of the houses. It caused more damage than anything. That's just what the old timers told me. In fact, somebody called me an old timer the other day, so I better be careful. They really did. And it also goes to show what happens if you don't have a good roof on a home. Houses need maintenance, just like people and trees and everything else. If you don't take care of a house, it goes downhill. So with that, we'll start. I'm looking at the picture right here. Let's hope this works. Kathy did this for me, so. And there we go. This is the first home built after Tell City was incorporated. And this was at where the frost top now stands. It was being torn down in 1900. Got some names in it. One of the fellows on there was Albert Rossman, who I think was Wilford Rossman's grandpa. That was where that was, you know, you can tell it's a log cabin. And from working at Schuylkill Village, I'll tell you right now, log cabins are not built to last very long. They're just not. They're just, you get 50 years out of a log cabin in a bucket. Okay, next. When Tell City was formed And Chris Kale will jump in and help me sometime, you have this. We're missing Mark Reyes, he's in Texas, so this is Mulberry Park. This was down, or Steve Solomon, you can jump.
Yeah, it was down across from where Max's is, or the Port Authority now. It's across on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Okay. And whatever happened to it, it just
That was dismantled in 1949, I think.
probably got torn up in 37 foot, nobody
Yeah.
fixed it up. Okay. That was here when Tell City was incorporated in 1858. As was this home. Everybody knows where this home is. Notice it's a stone house, the way a lot of early homes were built. There are, I don't know how many of these houses are left in Tell City. This might be the only one. Cannleton had a bunch of them. Steve, how many did they have at one time?
At one time, there was 55 of the stone block houses.
Just like this.
Yeah,
I think, you told me once how many are left?
I think there's only like 5.
5 left. Yeah, the rest of them were torn down. But if you keep a good roof on this home will be here long after everything else is dumped on it. If you notice how this house it's cocked. It doesn't face the street. Now remember, this was built before Tell City. It's cocked and faces Windy Creek because that was an open field in there. And it's the Historical Society, at least this is not proven, it's our theory, and we know for a fact that the surveyor is named Christian Pfeiffer. He surveyed all the streets in Tell City, all the streets and lots. And he was living here when he surveyed. And we think, when you set up a city, you have to go out and drive a stake somewhere. Start with one stake. North, south, east, west. We think he walked out to that intersection, which is 13th and Reuben, measured it off, drove a stake, and said, from here we start. That is because this house sits perfectly in a lot. Now, if we'd started somewhere else, they'd have come out to here, and the lot lines would have gone right through it. But the house is just sitting perfect. So that's what we think about that home. And as we move on. Ah, yes. Can you read that very well? I'll read it, so as you can. Okay, this house is catty-cornered from the poorhouse. And that was the home of January Weisenberger. If anybody remembers Vic Weisenberger, Vic had a daughter named Joyce. He married Dave Haywood. He also had a daughter married Ronnie McFarland. And this house was torn down in 1970. Beautiful home. And right next to it, does my cursor show there?
It did for a minute.
What?
It did for a minute, but not now.
Okay. Well, the house to that side of it is house of A.P. Finn, who built Tell City Chair from nothing to the company it is. An extremely well-built house. And the house back here is up now about it. Let's see, it's Gustav Walter. Now the house, Gustav Walter's house was torn down. It became what was called the stick shed at Tell City Chair. And January Weisenberger's house, A.P. Finn's house, and you can see the remains of another house right next to it, the Sedletsky house. They were all torn down, big, beautiful homes, make a parking lot for the Tell City Chair, which was desperately needed. Torn down. Big, beautiful homes. Okay. Does anybody recognize this one? Hussteiner, who said that? Winter, winter, chicken dinner. That's right. That's the Hussteiner home. You see right next to it is a building which is part of the Opera House now. The only thing I can say about this is that the Husteiners have taken good care of this home. In fact, Dave Hustiner gave a talk one time to the Historical Society. He said when he was digging in his backyard, he's digging for something, a day, hit something. And he started digging out, and he found a wooden sewer that ran from this house out to the river. A wooden, that's why they disposed of their whatever, okay? Now you notice at the bottom of the home here, on this house, and you'll see this in a lot of pictures, sandstone blocks. This is before we had concrete blocks. And they were brought from most of them were brought, I understand, from the quarry, which is where the Girl Scout camp is now. It's estimated that over 100,000 sandstone blocks came out of there. They built dams in Louisville. Steve, you have anything to offer on that?
Well, the stone house in Newburgh was built out of it.
Oh,
Old
wow.
stone house.
Someone threw that number at me. 100,000 stones were brought out of there. In fact, we have a clipping where they hired 200 men up there in 1860. They hauled those stones by barge, wooden barge up to Louisville and built a dam up there. But anyway, I'm going to move on here. As you can see, we have 126 slides. Okay, this is a mystery to us. It says, William Bettinger Residence, Maine and Pestalozzi, Tell City. Anybody offer any insight on this? I mean, Maine and Pestalozzi, just right over here. You know,
I would say it's a mistake, because the Hoodsteiner house was a big brick home.
yeah, Mike Bettinger's was at that corner. You know? And this was written up there, Maine and Pestalozzi, but we don't know. We're trying to figure this one out. Maybe it may show up in another picture later on, but if anybody doesn't have any information, I'll move on. Oh yes, everybody remember Miss Marty? And that building is still there. Let's see, part of it, it's, yeah, whatever. The porch, or the awning, what's the term on that awning? Anybody tell me? There's a name for that. Those awnings used to be all up and down Main Street. I remember you could almost walk up and down both sides of Main Street and the sun never hit your head. So. This Marty, by the way, was the first distinguished citizen of Tell City. The first one named. Okay. 627 Main Street. I believe you're right. That's Warner Drug Store. That's correct.
Also, Cunningham's had a
Cunningham's,
business.
yeah. And you look at that door to the left, right there, Hanser Studio. You go up them steps, took a picture up there. One of my first memories is going up those steps, and my mom carrying my brother Richard, and went there and we took a family picture up there.
Mr. Dugan had he was a photographer.
Mr. Dugan was there too. You're right.
His daughter was in our class too.
Yeah. That was quite a place.
Flash.
That is Warner.
Flash Dugan.
What's that?
That's what we all call it. Flash.
Flash Dugan, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Here is right over here. That is Dorothy Kessner's, now Chris Kale's building right here. And it's still there, and the balcony's still there. Chris does a good job of getting these old properties and taking care of them. I mean, he just does. I mean, that could have easily been torn down. This is a tragedy. Chris, would you like to tell us about this house?
Yeah. They tore it down, the Paulins tore it down, and I don't remember the article, but it said something about the plans was to build a gas station there.
Well, my mom told me.
I mean, I don't remember, I can't find that article again, but I read it somewhere. But when they tore it down, I think it was a firm out of Owensboro or Evansville, the article says, and it was one of the finest and well-built homes that was dismantled. I've got pieces of the porch, and I've got the iron fence I bought at an auction when they sold everything at Blackie's. I would love to put it back. The stone I didn't buy, couldn't afford it.
It's just right over here, man.
Yeah, it was a mansion.
Face the globe.
If you actually take these rods, the foundation is still under the ground. You can go out and hit it. You can literally find it. The sandstones are still there.
Behind this house is that world famous Genko Tree, which is still there. In fact,
That's a love-hate tree. It's a female one, so It doesn't smell the best sometimes.
Now, it's just a tragedy that house was torn down.
Oh, it does. It's awful.
Blackie was gonna build a gas station there, which was never built. Okay, Julie Connor. That's your house, right? Is that correct? Yeah, that's the house that Bill Connor bought. And we'll have another picture of it later on, but Bill bricked it, and he raised a bunch of kids there. A whole bunch of kids. Eventually, the Connors moved up to Berlin Hills, and the house fell into disrepair, and Albert Onstein tore it down. He has storage facilities there. That was originally the house of Philip Zerker. He was, I think, an early mayor. Was he a, John, was he an attorney, Philip Zerker?
I think he was.
Yeah, okay. All right. This is the east block of 500 Main Street. What's that? I think, yeah, that is right. That's what William Shergan's had a mortuary business there in one of them. I think this house is, this building is still there. What, that one, both of them are still there.
I'd say the one on the left is still there.
Behind the barn.
What's that?
What Dr. Claire's saying.
Yeah, the one you can see is behind the barn. The one on
This
the
one
left-
burned. Joe LeClaire had was there when it burned. Okay.
That's right, and the one on the left is the Lindblom.
Randall Fisher's shoe store would have been built right in there, right?
Right.
All right. That is the 1913 flood. Okay. Oh, this is an anomaly here. Of course, it's Dorothy's house, and I called one of the girls and said, "How old is this house?" And she said, in the barn, which is next, they found a piece of wood marked 1837. So, and she went on to state that when people moved into a place or built up a place, they built a barn first to protect the critters, and they lived there. So she thinks the house was built, Dorothy's house was built in the 1840s. The original piece, of course, it's been added on. So we don't know. Yes, Sissy?
At one time, it belonged to the Berkshire family.
Okay.
That's who Dorothy's mother-in-law bought it from, in about 1904, something like that.
Okay. Berkshire.
Yes,
I don't know, I guess.
but I've got the paperwork on that.
Okay. But, and Dorothy's still there at 100 years old. And next, okay, there's the barn. It's ready to fall down, but, and this is the east block of 500 Main Street again. It's kind of interesting. Look behind her, there's a guy standing there. That's, I guess, next to the old South School. You know, this was 1913 flood. I don't know. I just don't know. That's what it says. If anybody has anything to offer, man, let us know. Okay, this is the house that is, I always call it the Magnus Chrysler house. And it's still there. It seems to be falling kind of into disrepair, kind of yes, kind of no, but it's also supposed to have a secret chamber in the back, I've always heard, so.
That was also the bank during the 37 flood.
Right.
It was used as a bank. They actually had militia out, I think it was militia out front marching to protect it.
Okay.
We have footage of it in the 37 flood.
Oh, here's Ann Overhouse's house, Ann Manley's. What year was that built, Ann?
Built in 1910.
Okay. And who built that house? What was his name?
Dotson.
Dotson, that's right, Dotson.
Dotson's?
Dotson built it. He supposedly hid $3,000 in there. No one's ever is what's called, my mom told me, was an American Foursquare. There were two apartments built like this in Tell City. This is one. And the Borders house up here on 9th Street is 2. Danny Boland's is number 3. By the way, Danny Boland's and the Borders house, at one time I'm told, were identical. Okay, 3. Bob Hackle's house was 4. The house across from the Frost Stop, Jason Rhodes it now, and he's working on keeping it up. That's number 5. Everybody knows where Mark Rest lives on 10th Street. Right next to him is, we call it the Vivid Home. Derek Kleeman owned it, he just sold it. That's 7. I was told the Philip Zerker house where you live, Julie Cohen, was one of them. But that didn't quite fit, because we don't know if it may be cobbled around, I'm not sure. But Mom said there were 12 of them, I guess some of them have been torn down. Extremely well-built homes.
Yes.
And the thing that catches all our eyes when the historic society looks at this is just how well built these homes were. I mean, it's amazing the carpentry.
That has the stone foundation. Oh, you're going.
Yeah, no, that's okay, yeah, I'll go back. That's got that stone foundation.
It's got the stone foundations and the walls are 13 inches thick.
Oh my.
It's solid brick.
And if you see a house with those sandstone blocks, we think it was built before 1910. After 1910, they started moving. Technology took us to concrete blocks, which were much easier to work with. In one day's work, one man could lay 2 of those sandstone blocks as they came down from Counton by Parson Wagon. Jim George, who fixes appliances up here, told me his great-grandpa was the first guy who bought a concrete block machine, and he put that sandstone people out of business. And what's interesting is that the Georges, what brought them to Perry County was they were all,
Stone masons.
they were masons, that's correct. They built all kinds of stuff. They were masons, and George put them out. 806 9th Street. Anybody remember this one?
I do.
Yeah. That's where the sister's home is now, or Catholic Charities. Is that correct? I think it is. Go on. For many years, it was the home of Gabe Dush, who was a pharmacist. He was raised in 1969. And we got this picture, and this caused problems. It says 1000 block of 9th Street, 1913 flood. But the flood didn't get up that high down there. 1000 block. It just didn't get that high. I don't know. We don't know where that building was. I'm sure it's torn down, so who knows?
Go back to it for a minute, Bill.
Sure, love to.
Do you know, I know, it resembles the little Charlie Chips building a little,
Yes.
but I don't think it is.
I'm sorry. run that around again.
Charlie's Chip building.
That would be the 9.
Yeah, I'm just, with the address, it's 9th Street, the address could be wrong, but I'm just saying,
That would be the 1000 block of 9th Street.
no, it'd be the 900.
That'd be the 900 block.
But it does resemble it just a little.
Yeah.
But the water didn't get up that high, so.
Water
Does
didn't.
that look like a street next to it? Because it's right on the street.
Yeah, it does. Check it
I'll
out.
tell you what we'll do. You can match it up by the windows, the window on top and the 2 chimneys.
Well, it's a common building, I mean, that's a,
You're right, it's a very common building, you're right. There are a lot of those. But that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. And this is 1907. I'm looking east on 7th Street at 218 7th. You see the water tower on the left. Well, we think this house was torn down for the flood wall. We think. If anybody knows, let us know.
Bill,
No. Washington Hill, tore down about 25, 30 years ago, or longer. That's it. But-
Bill, you could actually, is that in the middle of it, the carriage in house, just above that one-story piece? I can't see from here. The roof line, you might be able to kind of
Yeah, I think it is.
get the Sanborn maps and look it up.
Yeah, we look at these, you try to look in the background, you see this,
But that looks like the carriage in house, but I can't see from
we
here.
don't know. The carriage in house,
It'd be in that 200 block of not Main Street, so it makes sense, Bill. I mean, I think you're right on. But I'd look at the Sanborn maps and,
yeah, we'll look at the Sanborn maps on that.
well,
By the way, when we say Sanborn maps, for those of you not aware, in 1880, 1900, 1909, the fire protection